Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Georgia Center for Nonprofits webinar on financial accountability and effectiveness for nonprofits, brought to you today by Chazen & Company. First off, a few housekeeping things. There is a PDF of this presentation that is available to you in the handout section of this webinar. If you have any issues downloading it today, don't worry. We will be sending a follow-up email within 3 to 5 business days that will contain a link to the audio presentation and the PDF copy, so you'll be able to download it at that time. If you do have any questions during the webinar, please make sure to use the questions option in the navigation pane. Some questions may be addressed as they come up, but we will also hold some time at the end so our presenters can answer any additional questions. Your presenters today will be Chris Babalak and Adele Chazen. Welcome and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Bonnie. Hi, everyone. My name is Adele Chazen, and I'm the president of Chazen & Company. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, we're a firm that provides outsourced accounting services exclusively to nonprofit organizations. I want to thank the Georgia Center for Nonprofits for hosting us today, and I also want to thank everyone on this call for participating. Chris Babalak is our operations manager, and he will be presenting this webinar on financial accountability and effectiveness for nonprofits. So, Chris, I'll let you take it from here.
All right, thank you, Adele, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope we can provide you with some good information to take back and use with your organization. We call it financial accountability for nonprofits, and as I thought about it a little bit more, I really thought I could have changed the title to Building a Culture of Accountability, because this really is not just about a checklist and doing A, B, and C, but in developing a culture throughout your organization, from your leadership and throughout your staff, of thinking about effectiveness, thinking about accountability and transparency. If you go on the web and you look for information on these topics, sometimes financial accountability is an umbrella term that includes effectiveness and transparency. Other times they're identified individually. What's important to know is they all three work together to build trust among your stakeholders. So all three are important. None is more important than the other. So what is financial accountability? The ability to demonstrate responsible use of your resources. Your donors, your funders, your members want to know what you are doing with their money and the impact of their dollars. You want to commit to the highest ethical standards and go beyond what the law requires in sharing information. What we will talk about today goes beyond the minimal legal requirements. When you think about the three components to financial accountability, as far as regulatory compliance, you want to make sure you do meet the minimum requirements. We'll talk a little bit about those later on. You want to have and demonstrate great stewardship of resources. You want to demonstrate how you care for the resources that have been trusted in you, as well as your use of those resources to achieve your mission. Because after all, your donors, your supporters, your stakeholders are supporting your mission. And you want to be transparent. Don't be afraid to share information. So what must a nonprofit disclose to the public? These are the minimum requirements. Your annual your Form 990 tax filing must be available for anyone who requests it. Your tax preparer should provide you with a redacted version that removes donors' names and donor amounts, because that is protected information. But any reasonable request for that information should be provided. You should also know that the IRS will provide your 990 to GuideStar, and it will be on the GuideStar website. We'll talk about GuideStar a little bit more in the presentation. But providing it sooner is actually a better idea, and we're going to talk about how to do that as well. Your organization's application for tax exemption, that too should be provided on your website or made available to anyone who asks for it, and your letter of nonprofit incorporation. If you are an organization that receives more than $750,000 in federal support and you're subject to a single audit, you should know that your single audits must also be submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. In Georgia itself, there's no special requirements beyond what I've just described. And just as a point of information, each state does have a state charity official who is authorized to handle any improprieties or complaints in connection with charitable nonprofits. We've included some resources at the end of this presentation that you can take a look at to provide more information on that topic. So financial effectiveness. Financial effectiveness is really, oops, sorry, got the slide right. Sorry, thanks, Adele. Financial effectiveness really is personalized to the organization. You have to think about what metrics are meaningful to your organization and to your stakeholders. I've just listed a few here. They may or may not apply. But for instance, your stakeholders might be interested in what your cost per person or client served is. Is it a very efficient cost that you want to make sure people know about, and that you have very low cost in serving your clients and you can serve many people for a smaller amount of money? Or is it quite expensive to serve your clients? And you want people to know that you need donations and you need more additional fundraising to serve more people. Can you tout some year-over-year comparative statistics? The giving you received year-over-year, the number of clients served year-over-year, or your overhead. Obviously, most organizations or most donors like to see organizations with low overhead costs. And is that something that you should be sharing with people? End consumer impact. What is the result of your efforts? What can you share with your donors and your stakeholders that show how you are achieving your mission? Again, this could be number of people served. This could be an impact in a community. There's many different ways this can be described depending on your particular organization's mission. From a financial result perspective, you can look at the percentage of resources dedicated to mission. This goes back to the overhead picture. Is your overhead higher or lower? Are you improving your overhead? Are you lowering it over time? That might be something that you want to share with your stakeholders. Again, I mentioned low overhead rate. It's very good if it's low or if it's improving. But in most cases, you want to be honest. You want to be truthful to your stakeholders as to what you are delivering to your mission. Net assets, you want to have a good, solid net asset basis on your statement of financial position. But you also have to be careful, because if some donors see that your net assets are too high and you're holding too much money, they feel that that money is not getting to the mission. So you have to kind of figure out what is the right level of net assets that looks attractive to people who want to support my organization. Funds raised. You might, there's the bandwagon theory that, the more people that you have supporting you is going to attract more donors. There's also the theory that, if you need more donors, that some people who care about your mission are going to jump on because the need is there. So again, I'm not saying that these particular metrics or financial results are perfect for your organization, but it's to give you some ideas of what to think about from your perspective of what type of information might be shared. You don't need a lot of metrics. Sometimes one or two powerful metrics can do the trick. And this is also one of the areas where culture really comes into play. Because if your staff is thinking about these types of metrics and thinking about the effectiveness of your organization and how to communicate that, then you're already down the road of accountability and effectiveness. You're already taking steps in that direction, and it becomes part of your day-to-day operations, not a second thought. So what is financial transparency? Oop, didn't go. Oops. 1 second, please, and see if I can figure out why that didn't move. There we go. Okay. Sorry for the delay there. I've got a definition of financial transparency there: timely, meaningful, reliable disclosures about an organization's operations, use of funds, and impact. I think that's probably pretty clear. So you want to have information available as soon as it can be. You want it to be meaningful to your stakeholders. And of course, you want it to be accurate. So who's ultimately responsible for accountability and effectiveness? First of all, your board of directors, your finance audit committees, your leadership. The board has the ultimate fiduciary responsibility for your organization. That is the first group that you need to be absolutely transparent with, sharing your effectiveness and being accountable to. They need information on a regular basis in a clear, succinct manner that they can process and use to help lead the organization. So that should be step number one, if that's not already happening. But the executive director, your CFO or finance manager, accountants, your program managers are all part of being accountable and effective. Again, the culture needs to spread throughout the organization. And one way to do that is to divide responsibilities for accountability and effectiveness and transparency. For instance, the board of directors is responsible for setting the policy for what type of information will be shared. Of course, there are some legal requirements that you have to follow, but beyond those legal requirements, the board has to set the policy again for what you will share, for instance, on your website. Your executive director, your program managers, they all need to be looking at the effectiveness of the organization. If you have communications people on your team, they are an important part in delivering the information and making sure it gets posted in a timely manner. So this is a team effort, and again, a way to build this into your culture. So most of the postings, most of the communications these days are done on an organization's website. A lot of it is done through the About section that everybody tends to have on their website. That's a good place to post the different things that different types of information that we're going to talk about. I mentioned GuideStar. GuideStar will receive your 990 filing at some point from the IRS. It's usually delayed a bit, definitely several months down the road. So if you have it on your website and you're posting it sooner, that's a positive. It means people who are interested in your organization can find that information sooner than waiting for it to appear on GuideStar. Now, GuideStar has been working in the last couple of years on a new program called Seals of Transparency that you might be interested in. And again, I've included a link at the end of this website so you can learn more about it. But through their Seals of Transparency, they say that the organizations that have seals, have been awarded seals on their website, are receiving greater contributions. It also, once you receive a seal on GuideStar, they will add a donation button to your profile on their website as well. So even if you have their lowest seal, which is a bronze seal, they have bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. If you achieve bronze, there's going to be a button on the website that gives people that are reading the information an opportunity to donate to your organization. So that might be worth looking at initially. And the information I provided you and on the GuideStar website, you can see what information you need to provide to achieve the different levels of seals. It's important. It's not a rating. It really indicates a level of transparency, what information and how much information you're willing to provide on the GuideStar site. And again, I provided a link to a blog later on that you can learn more information about this. All right. I've got 10 ways to just demonstrate organizational transparency. This isn't all-inclusive. This isn't everything. Again, we have some resources that attached that you can read, and you might find some other things in there. But here's some basic ways that you can, things that you can do, some beyond the law, what the law requires to improve your transparency. Make sure your website includes your vision and mission statements. People want to know what you're supposed to be doing as an organization. You should have conflict of interest and whistleblower policies. If you don't have those, that's something you should work on, and those should be posted as well. Donor stakeholders want to make sure that organizations are compliant. Provide that detailed program information. that I talked about earlier, including metrics. Again, it doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't have to be a lot, but provide key statistics, key metrics, key information about what you do that will inform and entice stakeholders to support you. Make sure you post the board and key staff members' names, titles, bios if possible. Again, people want to know who's running the organizations they're supporting and make sure that that there are good people running the organization. If you have an annual report, you should post that as well. I know very well that the annual reports that we kind of think of, the glitzy 4-color publications that used to be produced and then were converted to PDF, are expensive to produce. So you don't need to think of an annual report completely in that manner. An annual report can be a very simple one page on your website that highlights a year in a review for your organization. What are the great things that happen in achieving your mission or the people you served? A little bit about your financials. Are you growing as an organization? Is your fundraising growing? You know, whatever financial metrics would be helpful, again, for people to learn more about your organization. So don't necessarily think about an annual report being a very expensive and time-consuming thing, because I know many of you are small organizations, you don't have large staffs, and this can be a time-consuming effort. But maybe you can come up with a way to get some good information out to people who are interested in your organization. Post your most recent audited financial statements if you are an audited organization. Do post your own Form 990 with all parts and schedules except the contributors list. And again, your tax preparer should give you a condensed version to post. It's good to post your bylaws, your charter documents, your IRS determination letter that was mentioned earlier. Again, your bylaws give an indication to a stakeholder and how your organization is run and that you are well organized. Just sort of a general thought, you need to be truthful and have clear communications with all your stakeholders. Again, whether it's through your website, whether it's through fundraising materials, you want to be as truthful and clear as you can in anything that you send out. The other thing, to be honest, that's noticed, this might not happen a lot with small organizations, but it has happened with larger organizations where something gets in the news and maybe it's not a very favorable news report on an organization, and the organization doesn't address it. They don't address it at all on their website. They just totally ignore it like it never even happened. That sometimes is not a very favorable light on an organization if you ignore the challenges that you face as well. People like to see you confronting those challenges and putting plans and programs into place to solve those problems and to know that the board is working on solutions to solve the problems as well. Again, it shows that the organization is in tune to what's going on, and that the board is also in tune and taking steps to improve the activities of the organization. Another thing is to promptly respond to requests for information. Again, whether someone's just asking for your 990 or if they have a complaint about something that happened, you win over people by responding, even if they're unhappy to start with. Usually, if you address their problem and explain the situation to them, they become an ally. So it's very important to have a reputation to be responsive, because that word, if you're not, that word also gets around. So what are the benefits of being accountable and transparent? It's basically building trust among your stakeholders, and those can be donors and members, grantors, government agencies, volunteers. Staff members are very important. It builds confidence in them and loyalty in staff in working for the organization. Board members, I mentioned how important it is for them to have information, but also helps them do their job as the ultimate leaders of the organization. Program participants and the general public as well. Building trust among all those groups is a benefit of being transparent. Additional benefits of being accountable and transparent: quick and easy evaluation of your organization. You want to make it very easy for people to learn about you quickly. We all know the kind of society we are in now, how we process information, and the time people are willing to devote to researching things. So make it quick and easy for someone to know what you're about, and that you share information, and that you're transparent. Demonstrates that you have nothing to hide, that you're willing to share the good and the bad to some extent. I don't mean share the terrible, but you probably do want to share some challenges that the organization is facing, and maybe how those stakeholders can help you overcome those challenges. It does attract outside resources. Organizations that are transparent are more likely to get support from donors, funders, members, etc. Increases your impact by providing better self-assessment. This goes back to the culture thing again that I talked about earlier, that by internally looking at yourself more closely to be able to provide this information makes you a better organization, because you're going to learn things about your organization, where you are effective, where you're not effective, what your costs are, what your cost per impact event or your cost per customer are. And those things will help you manage your organization better if you're looking at those things on a day-to-day basis. There are also fundraising watchdogs out there, such as Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator is a really interesting site that a lot of people rely on to rate charitable organizations. They claim to have 11 million visits a year by donors. They look at the financial health and accountability and transparency of organizations. They evaluate right now about 9,000 charities through that full evaluation process of financial health, accountability, and transparency, and then have basic data on really the rest of the 1.8 million charities out there. So what would be one thing that'd be a good idea is to go out to Charity Navigator and put your organization in there and see what they have on you, and you'll find out pretty quickly if they just have basic data or if they've actually evaluated you, as an organization. Some of their basic criteria for evaluating organizations is that the organization is a 501c3. They've had $1 million in revenue for 2 consecutive years. They've been in existence for 7 years, for at least 7 years. That half of their public support, $500,000 in public support, so out of that $1 million or more, and then 40% of their revenue is from public support. So those are the sort of basic criteria initially they use to decide who they are going to fully evaluate. So if you don't really fall into those criteria, you're probably not going to be evaluated by them, but it's good information to know anyway. So talk a little bit about leveraging technology. There are different ways to help you use technology to become more effective in analyzing your own organization. And then we've already talked about, of course, using your website to disseminate information. One thing to do is to make sure that your accounting systems are set up to capture data for metric calculations. Make sure that you have a chart of account structure in the case of QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online, chart of account structure, class field, project field, that they're all being used to help you track your effectiveness on the different programs and services that you offer. They can also be set up in a way to help your 990 preparation make that more efficient as well. There are more robust systems if you outgrow QuickBooks because of the amount of activity and programs and services that you have. There's products like Sage Intacct, that's a viable option. They have online dashboards, are able to slice and dice information to greater dimensions. And in a second, I'll show you a little bit about what a dashboard might look like in Intacct. But as you grow and you have more programs and services to track, you might want to look at something that's a little bit more robust than QuickBooks. We also recommend that organizations use donor management systems to do just that, manage donors. We really don't recommend that accounting systems be used for donor management, and there are a number of organizations that do that. To be honest, accounting systems are poor donor management systems and can cause problems down the road in reporting if everything is not exactly entered the same way. So if you're trying to use your QuickBooks Online to track each donation to donors, we recommend that maybe you look at some donor management systems. There are some affordable systems out there that are not very complicated, not very expensive, that do a much better job of managing that information for you. There's also other evaluation tools out there that can be accessed to help analyze the effectiveness of your organization. Again, at the end of this slide presentation, I've included a link to some information there as well. It really, how much you need, again, really depends on the size of your organization and the complexity of your organization and how much you have going on. So it's really hard for me to prescribe anything that's perfect for any of the people that are listening to this presentation today. But if you kind of take a look internally and just ask yourself, do I have a good sense of how we're doing in each of our programs, each of our services? Can I gain some simple metrics from the data that we have to understand our effectiveness? So just answering those questions will help you determine where and what areas you need to work at and what areas you might need to do a little bit better. This is an example of an Intact dashboard. As I mentioned, Intact's a bit more robust system. It allows, this is a real-time dashboard that allows you to have graphs and different financial information. You can go beyond just the basic financial information that you would have with a statement of activities or a statement of financial position, because you can create different financial reports for individual programs or fundraising campaigns or whatever happens to be important to you at the moment. The clients who have Intact can also have multiple dashboards for multiple positions within the organization, so that each person can get just the information that they want to see on their dashboard. Again, we're not prescribing this for everybody. For many people, QuickBooks Online, that level of software is very good for smaller organizations. But if you find yourself pushing the limits of QuickBooks and trying to get it to do backflips that it really can't do, then you might want to look at something a little bit more robust. So that is really the information we wanted to share with you today. And at this point, we can open it up to questions, and we'll do our best to answer the questions today. If we can't, we'll figure out a way to get answers to you after we do a little research. Bonnie, do you have anything?
Yes, looks like we do have a couple of questions coming in. So one person asked, isn't there a minimum revenue threshold for having to file a 990? And if so, what is it?
Okay, this is Adele again. There's different levels of 990. There is the 990N, which was referred to as the postcard back in the day because it was literally a postcard that was mailed to the IRS. That is what should be filled out by all nonprofit organizations that have $50,000 or less in cash receipts every year. That's very easy peasy. There's no financial data on it. It just says to the IRS, you who are a nonprofit, we're here, and we certify that we made under this amount of money. That's the 990-N as in Nancy. You can Google that and get instructions on it. It's very easy. The next level of 990 is the 990-EZ, which is required for all nonprofit organizations that are bringing in $200,000 or less per year.
Yeah.
And that must be filed. That's a little more intense and complex. It is going to have financial information. It is also going to have some organizational information. And then anything over $200,000, you do have to file the full-blown 990, which is is quite a document, and that's really, we recommend that our clients and the nonprofits enlist the assistance of a tax preparer, both for the 990 EZ and the full-blown 990, because there is a lot of information that needs to be collected and reported on that form.
And then there is also for private foundations. I was just going to add, for private foundations, there is a 990 called the 990 PF that is a specialized document for private foundations.
Okay, and we have another question that says, do you have any recommendations for donor management systems for small nonprofits? They're currently using Constant Contact, but it's functioning more as a communications tool without the tracking ability that they're looking for donation history.
It's hard. There are so many out there right now. Gosh, there's eTapestry and Orange Leap and different. Oh my gosh, and we, you know what? I was going to say we might be able to go back and put together the list, but you really kind of have to shop around a little bit on the internet. But Adele, what do you can say?
Yeah, there's another platform called Kindful. It's KINDFUL, and it's simple and it's easy to use. It's user friendly. It's not super robust. So I think, what Chris, to kind of tag on to what Chris was saying, depending on what your needs are, you might be okay with something like Kindful. It's not always the best integration with your accounting system. So if you're looking for some kind of integration, you really need to look at your accounting system and what's available in terms of integration with that system. But if you're just looking for a basic good place to start, I think Kindful is a good one to look into.
And for larger organizations, there's some are looking at, there's a Salesforce nonprofit edition that larger nonprofits are looking at as well. But again, it really depends on what cost size of, the amount you're willing to spend for the system and the type of functionality you're looking at. And you want to look at things, that if you want to take donations through your website and you want this to process those, then you have to kind of look for that functionality to be able to tie that in. Also, the functionality of being able to allow different donation amounts and prescribe those or leave an open-ended donation. They're all kind of slightly different, and you have to look and see for the one that really fits what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, we have a request if you could explain fully audited means and advantages.
What was the question?
Fully audited means and advantages?
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm not sure, but I understand that question.
Yeah. Where did that come from? That term come from?
Yes. If that was your question, will you please submit some clarifying details, and then we can get an answer for you. We have another question from someone who is a nonprofit that was just established last year, and they are wanting to file their 501c3, but they haven't yet because they're not soliciting in the state of Georgia. The question is, do I still file my tax information this year?
Oh,
not if you haven't obtained your status, your approval letter from the IRS, no.
All right, and can you provide any tips on accounting for a capital campaign? Should it be run separately from an annual budget?
Well, usually, we talked earlier about having a chart of accounts set up properly and using, I'm not sure what kind of software they're using, but using class codes or some other coding to make sure that you can separate it. It still falls within your financial books for the organization, but what you should do is utilize some coding, like, for instance, like class codes in QuickBooks, to separate the revenue and expense associated with the campaign so that you can report on it separately from your general operations or your normal fundraising, if that's what they were getting at.
Got it. All right.
All of this kind of, let me just add to it, all this kind of depends on the type of information that the people who are running the organization need and that the board needs. And, so what you track and what you set up really kind of depends on that. So understanding what's important to your board and what they want to look at kind of drives a lot of how you set up your accounting system and what you track. And of course, if you have grants where you have to do grant reporting, you need to track those individually so that you can report on the funds coming in and how you use those funds.
All right. When a nonprofit collects donations from a site such as a Facebook fundraiser and the donor makes the gift in December, but the fund is not distributed to the organization until January, which month or fiscal year would you count the donation for accounting purposes?
December.
December. Okay.
It's always the period that the donation is received or committed to. So a receivable would be recorded on the books as of 12/31 for the donation amount, and then when the money came in, the receivable will be offset.
All right, if anybody has any more questions, go ahead and submit them now. Looks like we've reached the end of everything that we've got in so far.
Okay.
Was there ever any clarification on the audit question?
Nothing came in yet.
Okay, well, they're welcome to contact you on the side and reach out to us directly, and we can try to help them with that.
Yeah, well, let me just show. So I just put up a slide at the end that has some resources. There's the GuideStar Seal of Transparency that I spoke about. There's an accountability checklist that independent sector put out that has some really good suggestions on how to improve your accountability and how you're transparent and your transparency. And there's a little checklist you can do to see kind of what you're doing now. There's some more information on transparency from the Council of Nonprofits, and then there's information on Charity Navigator there as well. And then at the very last slide, I put our information. If a question comes up, feel free to email each of us, and we'll do our best to provide you with an answer. Please, just in the subject line or whatever, just kind of refer to this webinar so we kind of put two and two together on that. But we're happy to try to answer whatever we can.
Okay, looks like we got one more question in. Someone is asking, do you need to submit the full 990, or can you just submit a portion, and if so, which portion?
When you say, I'm assuming when they say submit, they mean make available. Okay, so there's two things. Submit to the IRS, you have to submit, everything that's requested on the form. If you're talking about the transparency part, making it available, there's a redacted version that you can get from your tax preparer. Like I said earlier, leaves off the donors and the actual names of donors, because there's a certain threshold of donors that you have to report in the 990. Those names are removed and those from the redacted report, and that becomes the public 990 that you either put on your website or send to somebody if they've asked for it.
All right, and then we got one more question asking about where we can get a copy of the slides. So if you look over in the navigation panel, you'll see a handout section. You're able to download those right now. If you're not able to download it now for any reason, I will also be sending a follow-up email with a copy of the slides and a link to the full presentation with the audio. So you'll be getting that in about 3 to 5 business days.
Okay, well, we want to thank everyone for your time.
Oh, a couple more, good.
I was going to say we'll give a couple more minutes for questions. If you guys if the presenters want to go ahead and sign off, we'll just leave the webinar open for a bit, so you're free to submit some more questions. We'll just make sure to follow up with Adele and Chris afterwards and get these over to them. But I just want to thank everybody for coming out. And yeah, I'll keep this open until 3:45, so feel free to submit anything until then, and then we'll send them the report with everybody's questions afterwards.
And we're actually happy to stay here till 3:45. And so if anything, if you want to drop anything in, just do. And if it looks like we've hit the desert on questions, then we'll sign off.
Okay, well, nothing's come in, so I think that may be everybody for today.
All right, well, thank you
All right.
again.
Yep, thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.